Everybody, and this is Narendra Kumar. And today, in the series of the NCRT lessons from 10th class India, NCRT English 10th class textbook, we have the third unit. And in this, we have two stories about flying. In this video, we'll have the first story, His First Flight, by Liam O'Flaherty. Liamo Flaherty. I'm not sure whether the pronunciation is correct. Okay, now we start with the first story, and the unit's name is Two Stories About Flying. First story is called His First Flight. It's a beautiful story. The young seagull was alone on his ledge, the edge on his ledge. His two brothers and his sister had already flown away the day before. He had been afraid to fly with them. He had been afraid to fly with them. Somehow, when he had taken a little run forward to the brink of the ledge, to the edge of the ledge, and attempted to flap his wings. Flap is, you do like that. Flap his wings. He became afraid. The great expanse of sea stretched down. The great expanse of seagull, stretched down beneath, and it was such a long way down. Miles down. How well is it? He felt certain that his wings would never support him. So he bent his head and ran away back in the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. Even when each of his brothers and his little sister, whose wings were far shorter than his own, ran to the brink, flapped their wings, and flew away, he failed to muster up, muster, muster up, bring about, to gather, muster up courage to take that dive. Plunge means dive, which appeared to him so desperate. So desperate. Somehow he has to do it. His father and mother had come around. His father and mother had come around, calling to him shrilly, shrilly, upbraiding him. Upbraiding. Upbraiding means, complaining. Hey, come on, you can do it. Complaining, encouraging, plus mainly being criticizing, upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve on, on his ledge unless there is a discipline. He flew away, but for the life of him, like nothing can cure him. That's a actually expression, idiomatic expression. But for the life of him, he could not move. That was 24 hours ago. Since then, nobody had come near him. The day before, all day long, he had watched his parents flying about with his brothers and sister, perfecting them in the art of flight, perfecting them in the art of flight, teaching them how to skim the waves, come on top, skim the waves, how to skim the waves, and bow, and how to dive for fish. He had in fact seen his older brother catch his first herring, a fish, and devour it, eat it, completely eat it. Devour it is completely eat it. Standing on a rock while his parents circled around, raising a proud cackle. Caw, caw, caw. Proud cackle. Wow, you did it. And all the morning, the whole family had walked about on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. Taunting him. You are coward, you are coward, you are coward. Negative criticism. The sun was now ascending the sky, blazing on his ledge that faced the south. Blazing. Sun is blazing, shining too brightly. That faced the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. He had not eaten. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge, and standing on one leg, with the other leg hidden under his wing, he closed one eye. He closed one eye, then the other, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. Still, they took no notice of him. He saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau, dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. His father was preening the feathers on his white back. Preening is making an effort to maintain feathers. Preening the feathers to maintain the feathers. Keep it. Only his mother was looking at him. Mothers are like that, no? Looking at him. She was standing on a little high hump, like that. On the hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again, she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. Each side of the beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him. He was like so hungry. Drove him crazy. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. How he loved wet it, to scraping his beak and to wet it, to put, ga, 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 he cried, begging her to bring him some food. Gaw, gaw, ah, gaw, gaw, ah. She screamed back derisively, very negatively, derisively, insultingly. But he kept calling plaintively, please. Plaintively means like pity, drawing pity, plaintively, like beggar. And after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of the fish and was flying across to him with it. He leaned out, eagerly, very eagerly, so interested, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless still, the piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer, and then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. Got it? He dived at the fish. She brought it close and didn't come fully close. He dived at the fish. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. He's downwards into space. There, a monstrous terror seized him. Inside the terror feeling you get, sometimes, seized him, and his heart stood still, like that. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a minute. The next moment, he felt his wings spread outwards. The wind rushed against his breast feathers. Then under his stomach and against his wings, he could feel the tips of his wing cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong. Now, he was soaring, rising gradually, downwards and outwards. Soaring, like he was not falling, he was soaring. Control had come. Downwards and outwards. He was no longer afraid. He just felt a bit dizzy. Then he flapped his wings once, and he soared upwards. Wow. What a victory. Gar, 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 gar. His mother swooped past him. Swooped past him. Her wings making a loud noise, He answered her with another scream. Then his father flew over him, screaming. He saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him, curveting, going round like that, curveting and banking and soaring and diving. All were all excited. How well this story is written, no? How well writers write. Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly. He completely forgot his terror, that he had a terror once, and commended himself, congratulated himself, gave him credit himself to dive and soar and curve, shrilly, like that. He was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing straight out over the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him with little ridges moving over it, and he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusement, like funnily. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. They were beckoning to him, beckoning to him, calling shrilly. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. His legs sank into it. He screamed with fright, fear, and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings, but he was tired and weak with hunger, and he could not rise, exhausted. Exhausted. Exhausted by the strange exercise. His feet sank into the green sea. His feet sank into the green sea, and then his belly touched it, and he sank no farther. He was floating on it, and around him, his family was screaming, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scraps of dogfish. He had made his first flight. How beautiful this story is. The story of terror, of how things stop you, then something is a nudge comes, and you win. How much lesson is there? Obviously, I won't come between you and the writer. It will spoil the most beautiful story I've read after a long time. Now, what we must do? We must listen to this again and again and again and again, like a song, and then give a gap. I believe, as a teacher, that even I must not come even with this guidance. Give a gap, and then silently you read this story on your own. And I'm telling you, because of these readings, listenings, I think you'll get a very beautiful feeling which is personal to you. That is literature. That's all. Somebody reads word by word, you read word by word later. That's it. And you do a lot of reading. And also, as you go on getting a lot of input, as Ray Bradbury says, lots and lots of thousands of stories and essays and novels, pages you have written in novels, something explodes within you from out of that is the joy of life. Thank you.